I'm very happy and privileged to be a part of the launch of A Piece of the Moon, one of the most exquisite and outstanding works of Anglophone fiction that have come out of South Asia in recent years. And I'm also very happy to be joined with Dr. Syed Nomanul Haq, who's sitting on my left. Otherwise, I'm a little more left than he is. But today he's sitting on my left. And Dr. Syed Nomanul Haq needs no introduction when it comes to his credentials of being an academic scholar, a researcher, an expert of languages, on languages, Near and Middle Eastern languages, Urdu, Persian, and from our local Punjabi, Saraiki, and Sindhi, his command over European languages is also very well known. And he's been one of the editors of Cambridge History of Islam, besides editing and authoring many other works. Welcome, Dr. Syed Nomanul Haq. And Dr. Syed Nomanul Haq is not the author of the book, as it says in the program sheet. That's a minor correction that I need to make. But Dr. Saab, the author of the book is Mushir Anwar, and the book is posthumously published. But Dr. Syed Nomanul Haq has actually written a befitting prologue to this publication. And I'm also very happy to see Peter Coughlin, who has flown from the US, from Canada rather. He's from the US, but now he lives in Canada, who's the editor of the book and a very close friend of the late Mushir Anwar. And we'll request Peter towards the end of the session to say a few words about his experience of making this book happen. I'm also very happy to see Mr. Mujahid Ashai, who is a translator and an author in the audience, besides being joined by Khayyam Mushir, who's instrumental in bringing this work together. So Mushir Anwar, unfortunately, he passed away 8 years ago. Suddenly, it was more or less a sudden passing. And this is his first and only novel. He has written short stories. He has translated many works from English and other languages into Urdu. But he used to write short stories and his own fiction in English. And his grandfather had migrated from Muradabad to Rawalpindi in the middle or early middle 20th century, and Mushir Anwar was a quintessential Pindiwal. He went to Denise High School in Pindi and then graduated from Gordon College, Rawalpindi, earning his master's in English literature from Punjab University. Gordon College was affiliated with Punjab University. And then he started work as a journalist. Correct me if I'm wrong. He started working as a journalist with Pakistan Times in Pindi. Later on, he wrote for The Nation, and Dawn very regularly. I define him as a self-effacing polymath. He was a very reserved, self-effacing person. But for the literati and the creative community in Rawalpindi and Islamabad, he was the first port of call whenever they would need to discuss or learn something about different works, different disciplines. The book, A Piece of the Moon, is published by Folio Books. It is available on the Folio Book stall in Hall 1. And before I request Dr. Syed Nomanul Haq to speak about the book, let me just read one small paragraph to give you the flavor of the haunting, imaginative prose that Mushir Anwar has offered. The book, by the way, is an ordinary tale of a South Asian Muslim household in the middle of the 20th century that also experiences partition of British India. And it is told in an extraordinary way. So it's an ordinary tale of a South Asian middle-class Muslim household, extraordinarily narrated by Mushir Anwar. And I quote from the work: "There's a subtle, imperceptible trick that provides brief intervals of revival between stretches of pain, sorrow, or worry, probably to prepare you for sharper pains and more intense intimations of sorrow. It is not the journey's end, but the stops on the way that mitigate the disillusionment of arrival and the apprehension about the next departure. I move to you, Dr. Syed Nomanul. You have written a brilliant prologue, but I would like you to give us short, synopsis is short anyway, a synopsis of the story, and then if you can speak about the style, and also since you are a person who's more, steeped into poetry, classical poetry particularly, why did you choose to write on a novel?
Well, as I've said in my prologue, I called it introduction, but Peter changed it to prologue. It is very difficult for me to describe this work because the flow of narrative and the quality of language is so dazzling that I get lost in it. I get lost in the surface of the narrative. It stops me from going beyond it. I was just amazed to see the imaginative depth of Munshe Anwar Sahib's prose. I had never known that he could write with such imaginative and intellectual control over matters. Now, if I were to describe this novel, there are actually three characteristics. One is that it has, its character formation is quite unique. And I have hardly seen character formations which are so consistent, harmonious, accurate, and meaningful that he's done. The other thing is that he has placed the household at the core, and the whole narrative actually radiates forth from the household. And then I see three dispositions of the narrative: the individual, the self, the family, and the larger world. Now, as for the technique of this novel, you see it in the case of the individuals. The identification of Munshe Anwar, the author with the character, is such that it is often very difficult to decide whether it's Munshe Anwar speaking or whether it's the character speaking. And in fact, among the self-portraits with which the novel begins, in which the characters speak in the first person, he has inserted his own self-portrait. So there's a double self-reflection in that section, and he says that a moment comes when characters seize power. The characters seize power, and the author and the narrative and the events and the characters, they are like flotsams from a shipwreck. And in high seas, it is that this is that ocean which is called life, and we try to capture it in a channel, and we fail each time. One of the motifs that runs through the narrative is the motif of journey, and the illusion about the destination. He talks about failing each time when you start a journey. In fact, there is a beautiful sequence in the novel where a train never reaches its destination. It goes back and forth between Calcutta and Delhi, and it goes back where it starts from. So there is this motif of journey and never-ending journey. The destination is elusive and elusive. It eludes, and it is also an illusion. And there one of his characters gets into kind of a Sufi explanation that it is in fact in the journey in which lies the accomplishment, and it is the quest which is important, not the end of the quest. The remarkable thing is that among these three dispositions of the novel, the family, the individual, and the world, there's a balance, and they feed into each other. one can treat this novel as a compendium of human relationships in a Muslim household of India, but also it is about partition, about journey, about aspirations, about ambitions, and about frustrations. It's quite amazing that while we have the inner core of individuals in the first part, we also read about Jinnah Sahab and Gandhi and the partition and the journey of families from India to this unknown land. But as I've said in my prologue, what really attracts me is the beautiful language written, the imaginative language. It sort of gushes forth, and it is so flowing. It is so flowing that it hides its strength. This is the trick. It seems as if it is a very, as if it's very simple to construct. But like the Wadi al-Kabir river in Granada, you put your hand in it and it will never be stopped. It will go around it because there's inner strength. You know, the notion of Qare Darya, the undercurrents. The undercurrents are so strong. So this is the kind of thing, I mean, I'm just, you know, lost in the glow of Mushir Saab's expression. I never knew that somebody who writes for the newspaper, journalistic short pieces, could write such beautiful, sustained prose. This is sustained, and it doesn't dip from its high plateau throughout those so many hundreds of pages.
If I may ask, stylistically, what you have said, and I'm paraphrasing, and you know, you can explain it better, that you say that in terms of technique and in terms of style, the narration sort of oscillates between magic realism and metaphorical spiritualism. I mean, what do you mean by that? If you can explain this for us.
If you have a natural situation, a real natural situation, and something supernatural arises out of it, and then it feeds into the natural. Now this sort of dialogue, this dialogue between the natural and the supernatural, that is the crux of magic realism which we have in it. In fact, you yourself do it in your own poetry. You know, when you talk about a kite getting caught in the eyelashes, which is impossible. I mean, it will never happen, but it has a meaning. So the supernatural, the play, the dialogue, the exchange, the dialectic between the natural and the supernatural, and then enlightening both, throwing both of them into narrative perspective. That is what it is. And you know, there is an interest in supernatural and magic too. In Mushir Anwar Saab's narrative, there is this case of parrot who tells you your destiny. In fact, that is the cover of this book. There is a parrot who picks a card and gives you your Tota Fal. So there is you know, an interest, a linkage with supernatural too, and I call it supranatural, not supernatural.
If I may read another excerpt from the book briefly, and then I will request Peter to add to this conversation. We don't have a lot of time, Peter, but if you can tell us about your journey with this novel. This is a character. The book begins by the major protagonists in the novel introducing themselves in first person, and when the story begins, that narrative changes and they are mentioned. Chidda, Dillan, Shammo, they're all mentioned in third person as a part of the tale. So this is actually Chiddan, a character called Chiddan, speaking about himself and his relationship with Apa. I had no permanent abode except this house, and returned to it time and again when I had nowhere else to go. Upon my return, they never asked where I had been all those days. Appa would always ask if I had eaten. I would sit in the kitchen with her and make spicy bran and onion chapatis for myself and the children who loved me like a household pet. Sniffing near my face, Appa would request me to swear I had not drunk toddy. I have no religion and don't know who God is, but I knew Appa was a saint. And for her, I was like a prodigal son. Sometimes she would caress my head and tell me my hair was very dirty. Sitting me down near the kitchen drain, she would pour water as I soaped and washed my head. It is odd, I could never bring myself to touch her feet, as at such times I yearned to do. Nor could I hide my tears, though, by making her own eyes well up with emotion. I learned in time to regard tears as the fluid that love extracts from the heart's sorrow. Peter.
Good day. My name is Peter Coughlin.
If you could speak into the microphone, Peter.
My name is Peter Coughlin. I am, by training, industrial and agricultural economist, but I also do academic editing on the side. I have known Mushir since Mushir Anwar since 1982 and have visited here 5 previous times and always visiting Mushir. In '82, we joined our families in Nairobi. I had a small daughter, and I was kind of taking the role of mommy and daddy. And he had his son, very large now, Khayyam. They were both in their 6 or 7 years old, they were. And Mushir would take them off into a corner in another room and tell them tales, magical tales. They were enthralled. He would also write, and I would sometimes see short stories that he would write. And I saw that Mushir had exceptional talent. So, when he had to come back to Pakistan, I persisted to try to encourage him to write a novel. Well, Mushir liked his BD, and he liked his glass, and he liked his friends, and he was indeed very difficult to persuade. It took about 2.5 decades to get him moving. So around 2008, he started writing, and he would send me chapters, and I would comment, make small edits, comment again. We would have many rounds. And finally, in September of 2015, he completed the full draft. But we were unable to interact on the last 1 or 2 chapters. And soon thereafter, in December, he died. So we never really were able to fully complete the novel. Because as you know, any novel needs considerable interaction, considerable editing, little tweaks here. You have to sometimes, a paragraph that needs some rewriting. I think most of you know this process. So I got a hold of Khayyam, and remember, we were family. They lived with us for 6 or 7 months. And so I talked to Khayyam, and I said, we must finish this novel. It's great. We need to finish it. So we worked on it for on and off, probably for about another 3 years. Finished it around 2019. Sought international publishers. We eventually decided to go with a local publication to see how the market receptivity was. And so this is how we got this novel. Now, I would only like to make one comment about content. And that is, what I perceive to be magnificent development of character and avoidance of preachiness. He lets the lives of these people speak to you. Never in a preachy way. The facts speak enough. The facts tear at your heart. It's the facts of these people's lives that are speaking. Never in an authorial voice. And in that regard, about one more minute, in that regard, I would like to point out the development of women in this book and men. Women, there are at least 4 characters in the book that they suffer in very many different ways. And they rebel or not rebel, they succumb. But these experiences speak of themselves, of the transformative process that this and all societies are going through.
Yeah.
And then there's the other side of the coin, the relationship of men to women that is developed, but never in a preachy way. You just hear, see what's occurring. Good or bad, strong, weak, all of these things, and sometimes good, bad, strong, weak, it's in the same person simultaneously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. And we would like to close the session by an excerpt from the prologue, which I would like to request Dr. Syed Nomanul to read from.
Yes.
And then we will end the session.
This is a flash of Mushir Saab's own self-reflection, and I think what he has said is the crux of the matter. When the narrative comes alive and the characters seize power, both the narrator and the author lose control. The author, the narrator, the characters, and the events are all adrift like flotsam from a shipwreck in the high seas. This ocean is life that we try to shape into a channel, though we fail every time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Syed Nomanul. Thank you, Peter. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us at this launch. Thank you. The book is available at Folio Books in Hall 1. A Piece of the Moon by Mushir Anwar. Thank you.